Okay, if you're flying through pedigrees and this is coming pretty simple, you might be ready for sex-linked pedigrees today. So, sex-linked pedigrees show when one gender is way more affected than the other. So, in this example, we have all males being affected. And before we do this, it's important to talk about how genotypes for females and males work. So, if we go back to sex-linked Punnett squares. If you're a male, you are XY. Don't worry about the B's right now. You're XY. If you're a female, you're XX. Now, if a trait is present in every generation, it's a dominant trait, right? So if you're a female, you could be dominant X. You could be dominant X recessive, which would be lowercase b, for example. And then you could be homozygous recessive, so you have two lowercase b's. So for a female, you have three possible genotypes. But for a male, you only have two because you don't have a second X chromosome. You're XY. So if you're dealing with a sex-linked related trait and you're a male, that means that you have one X chromosome and it's either dominant or recessive. So if you have the trait, you are this. You don't put a letter next to Y because it's a new chromosome. It's a different one. It's not the same one. And then if you're if you're not affected, you are recessive. So it'd be X recessive B, Y. So let's look at this sample Punnett square. We had a dad who had a dominant trait, and we have a mom who had a dominant trait. And we're going to see if any of their kids have dominant or recessive. So first of all, they have a 50% chance of having a female XX or a male XY. And among those females, all of them are going to have at least one dominant allele. This one's got two, this one's got one. So they will exhibit the dominant trait. Check, check. For the male, it's 50-50 split. The dominant trait is here, but there's a 25% chance among all kid possibilities that they're going to have a male who's recessive. So they will not have a recessive female, but they will have a recessive male. Now, let's say the trait you're actually dealing with is a recessive trait. So in this case, mom didn't have it, but she could have passed it on to her kid because of that. Dad didn't have the trait, but they were able to have a kid, a son, who does have the trait. So neither of these parents would be colored in, for example, but their son right here would if the trait was recessive. So let's do an example. Hemophilia is X-linked recessive. So let's do this Punnett square. So a mom whose dad had this sex-linked recessive trait marries a man without hemophilia. So the guy doesn't have hemophilia, which is a recessive trait. So if he does not have it, he's dominant. Now the mom does not have hemophilia, but her dad did. So if it's a recessive trait, that means if mom doesn't have it, she has to have that dominant allele to show that she doesn't have the recessive trait, but her dad did. And she got her X chromosome from her dad. She didn't get the Y because she's a female. So she is going to be this. Then we do the Punnett square, and we get XB. So this is a female who does not have hemophilia. This is a male who does not have it. This is a female who also does not have the trait. And this is a male who does have the trait. So they have a 25% chance of having a male that has the trait. But they have a 0% chance if they have a girl that the girl will have hemophilia. So it's the same Punnett square that we did, except they used H's instead of B's. So now let's do a pedigree. So if you're dealing with a pedigree, first check, is it sex-linked or not? If it's sex-linked, you're going to see more guys than females or more females than guys. There's no females colored in, so this is sex-linked. The next thing is it recessive or is it dominant? Nobody's affected up here, so this is recessive. So it's a sex-linked recessive trait. That means if you're a guy and you have it, first of all, your XY all these guys are XY. And all the other guys are XY too, but I'm just focusing on these guys. And because it's recessive, because not every generation is affected, that means that you're going to use a lowercase b for the x. That's simple. All right, that's it.